Welcome, LinkedIn and Instagram Live listeners. This is Rudy Nieto here, CEO of Mavsign. Thank you for attending our first ever Mavsign Fraudcast. It's a show dedicated to exposing the evolving landscape of fraud in the auto industry and related mobility industries. For those of you that don't know, Mavsign has been a leader in eliminating fraud, specifically around offsite deals, going back 18 years, and we'll talk a little bit about that. We have a couple of special guests today, but I'd also like to take a moment to introduce my co-host and co-founder of Mavsign, the OG Thane Nyo, best dressed man in automotive, coming here from Las Vegas. And
Hey, how you guys
Thane, I'll
doing?
let you
Thank
say
you.
hello real quick. He is definitely the coolest person on this call. So I like to say that I'm the Johnny Carson. He's Ed McMahon, hostess with the mostest, but I will let y'all add in the comments towards the end, and y'all can differentiate which one's which. So Thane, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you, Rudy. I used to be in automotive for 25 years. I ran two car dealerships, Infiniti and Jaguar in Southern California. Quit the business, went to spend time with my kids, and I got pulled back in by a friend of mine who had an idea or a thought on how we can help dealerships combat fraud, mitigate their losses, lower their CITs, at the same time drive their CSI up. And we started at a house, at a Denny's actually, signed a napkin, went to a friend's house, and had some tequila and started the idea.
Just to make sure Tiger Woods wasn't there, was he? I'm just checking. Okay. Anyway,
No,
Denny's
Tiger.
show. I
That
didn't get that one.
was way before that. Yeah. But yeah, that's
No,
how
good
it all
stuff.
started.
Good stuff. Well, so I joined Mavsign a little bit less than a year ago as CEO. I had an automotive career spanning approximately 22 years, some retail and automotive, JM&A, and then I was with the rentals company for a period of time. And the reason I jumped at the opportunity to be at Mavsign was it was like that one vendor that just wasn't going to go away because they were so essential to what dealers were trying to do. And I never understood it when I was there. And so then when the opportunity came back, I was like, hey, man, you can't beat them, join them. Right. And so it's been a great ride getting to know Thane, and he's a legend. And then also just getting to meet all the people that Thane knows. So as I do that, I'm going to go introduce Ryan and Aaron. And the most interesting part about Thane is that every person that he introduces me to, there's actually a story of how they met. Like, one guy was like at a pool in Vegas. Another person was at an airport. Another one was at a casino who thought he was like a movie star. So on our first intro call with KPA, Thane and Ryan had already known each other, and I'll introduce Ryan in a sec. But I get on this call with the KPA guys. We're just like, it's a howdy call. Like, what could we do together? And Thane, in the past has had IT issues getting on, logged in, and then KPA decided to do Teams, and we're like, oh my God, what is this Teams? He's on like an iPad. If you've ever tried Teams on an iPad, so I'm already like not
It's true.
expecting much. Well, Thane was in Big Bear at the time, and I guess they had lost power that day. But I wasn't buying the whole "I lost power" excuse because I've heard that one before. It's like, all right, try again. So then Thane can't get on. He's not connecting. Aaron's trying to connect, and I'm like, Aaron's like, I'm having problems. I can't get on either. He was in, I think, his truck, maybe on truck Wi-Fi or something,
Yep.
because his power was out. And so then I felt like I was telling like a Goldilocks story. Dane's like, well, I'm in Big Bear and my power's out. And Aaron's like, yeah, my power's out too. And then I guess somebody said, are you in Big Bear? And you're like, yeah, I'm right over here. So it turns out our first call, we got zero done talking with the KPA folks. But then I was like, hey, since neither of y'all have power, why don't y'all just go meet and y'all go figure this thing out? And that's what happened. So anyways, they end up, having a coffee, and then this is how we got here. So that was my great intro for Aaron. So Aaron, just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you came to KPA, and what your role is.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that was definitely a fun day, to be honest, with Thane and the coffee. We made lemonade out of lemons for sure. Aaron Hartshorn, I been with KPA for 8 years. Was part of a company prior in the compliance field. I'm the regional director of F&I compliance on the West Coast. Obviously, Ryan is my counterpart. And over at KPA, my main goal within my department is to help eliminate or reduce liability for car dealerships in a multitude of fashions. Obviously, fraud and red flags and advertising and sales and finance is all things we cover. So, this is a subset of what we do, but very important portion of what's happening in regards to the increased amount of fraud that's occurring, for the last couple of years.
No doubt, no doubt. All right, last but not least, I'm going to kick it over to introduce the gun show, Ryan Daly. He has not met a barbell that he has not conquered, I believe, is his claim to fame. So Ryan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks. Happy to be here. Just like Aaron, I've also been here 8 years. I was started in the car business late 2004, and prior to that, I actually worked at a bank for 6 years. So fraud and compliance has been in my background since 1997. So some of the things that I watched starting in the car business versus the bank, I was like, I'm going to jail. I had a feeling like I might want to get a lawyer on retainer here because some of these things are just, not good.
Yeah, hear you. Understood.
Absolutely.
Well, so we've got some powerhouses here in compliance. I'm just honored to get to be around all of your knowledge, and I've just learned so much about fraud. Until you're in it, you don't really see it's all reactive, right? Like if you're not in that loop, it's all reactive, and you're just scared all the time. And I actually did a little post this morning. I'm like, we don't have to be scared, if we can just decontent a bit and humanize it. And so I kind of wanted to use this call instead of, letting fraud stories scare people into what they have to go do and getting all serious about it. I wanted to go make fun of some fraudsters. Like, let's go get back at them and it's have a little fun at some of the things that they've tried. One of my gags was I was going to start and have a fifth window for Marco Rubio and say, hey, I got a special guest. But then I figured out last week it was actually just a deepfake that was running our government for a whole day. I don't know if you haven't heard that story, Google Mark Rubio deepfake, and he legit got away with whoever it was. They didn't catch him. They got away with it. So it was. Thankfully it didn't do any damage, and it was just kind of funny. But it is kind of amazing what people are willing to do nowadays. And so kind of in that vein, I was just going to, have y'all give some thoughts on what are the big topics you're seeing in fraud today. And then maybe if you got any good anecdotal stories. Obviously we don't want to expose individual dealer names or PII or anything like that. So Thane, you've got the most. You are the hostess with the most.
Sure, I do. I realize that sometimes on a fraud deal, it's not a fraudulent customer or intentional. Our first account was Ashbury dealer. It was Mercedes-Benz of Tampa that wanted us to notarize a document for $120,000 vehicle, which went fine. But we did one for AutoNation. This was my foot in the door. We did one for Jaguar South Bay. Kevin Bunting was the GM there. Kevin, if you're out there, I appreciate all the forethought you put into that and signing up with us. But he called me 6 months down the road after he signed up and said, well, listen, a U.S. bank had just notified me and said that they have a fraud deal on their hands. I asked him what happened. He goes, the customer, husband and wife, claimed they never leased a vehicle from South Bay Jaguar in Los Angeles, California. And so I called our operations manager and got the notary journal, got the fingerprints, got the state-specific affidavit of identity, and forwarded everything to Kevin. Kevin then forwarded everything to U.S. Bank. U.S. Bank contacted the customer, said, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, we're sorry this happened to you. However, we do have a notary signature, a statement acknowledging she was at the house, pet the dog, had some coffee, and has thumbprints that we're going to forward to the FBI and let them analyze the situation. And customer just halted everything. Hold on. Let me call you back in a few minutes. So shortly thereafter, they called the U.S. Bank back and said, you know what, we totally forgot that we had leased this car for our daughter, and she's been driving it for the past 6 months or whatever it may be. And we want to revoke that claim. And then we're really sorry about the situation that just happened. And that went back to Kevin, which he sent up to the market president and the regional F&I director, and I got our foot in the door right there. But again, it wasn't I don't think it was a planned one. I think it was during the recession, which was 2008, 2009, and they were just trying to get out of their lease. They didn't know how else to do it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they will rationalize their position pretty quick if it suits them. So is that kind of how fast, secure, accurate got started? That's kind of been our slogan, our tag phrase. Tell us how that kind of came to be.
Well, we acknowledge the three main issues for car dealerships. I used to be one for 25 years. Started on the floor, sold cars, went to finance, went on the desk, and then moved on from there. So fast, secure, and accurate were the three main pillars of Maverick. Fast meaning if you ever FedEx paperwork, especially back in my day, FedEx paperwork to a customer, they would sit on it, sign it whenever they wanted to, and then it would get signed in the wrong places, and they'd send it back, and then the dealership would have to start the process all over again. Customers pissed off. They're not happy about the situation. They want their car. The dealership wants their car, and they can't get funded until that car is the doctor signed right. So for a used car manager, it creates havoc because he can't turn his inventory and go buy more used cars because that car is just sitting there. So fast was number one. We want to turn around fast. Secure. There's beginning of fraud. 2000. It was still fraud out there, but it was growing because internet was growing back in 2007, 2008. So to mitigate fraud was a huge thing. We'd have our schedulers contact customers, and I'll give you another story in a little bit. And we'd tell the customer, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, we're calling on behalf of Toyota Dallas, and we're just going to come out and sign the paperwork with you. And then next thing you know, when there's a follow-up call, the salesperson couldn't reach the customer. They couldn't work, couldn't reach them at home. The phone would be disconnected. So before we even go out to the customer's house, the fraud deal was already identified at that point because they would disappear. So secure was number two, and accurate. Again, like I said earlier, we got to get the doc signed right the first time. If we don't sign them right the first time, it's useless. So we want to get them back in the quickest fashion possible because I know that the banks can fund the loan faster. One, two, the salespersons rely on that commission check, right? and I mean, there's just so many things tied to being accurate and getting that paperwork turned around right the first time. And the lenders like it because they don't want to go back to the dealership and charge the dealership or the customer back, the dealership back, and say, hey, you know what, you owe me for $100,000 car because you didn't follow proper steps.
Yeah.
And that hurts dealer lender relationships also.
Yeah. The thing I was most impressed by that you did, Thane, was like you got the banks to go tell the dealers, like, hey, if you want to do offsite deals, you got to use MAP. I thought that was
we got them
powerful.
to endorse us. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Good stuff.
It's
a
win-win.
Let's jump over to Ryan and Aaron. I'll go with Ryan first. Ryan, talk to me about what you see in the industry and fraud and just kind of in general with the kind of I was saying this when we were in the pre-call, like you probably have some pretty funny questions. It's almost like sometimes your kids ask you the best questions that you're just like, I got to write this down. You probably got some humdingers that you could share. Obviously, again, we're not trying to embarrass anybody, but just the way fraud is designed is to get us like inside our own head, psyching ourselves out, right? So talk to us about how you get those and how you approach that with your dealers.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. You would think in 2025 with all of the access people have to just different systems to prove people who they are. Question that comes up still in 2025 is, do I have to run a red flag? Yeah, you do, actually. So it's just what people are saying, it slows it down. It does this. I'll do it after the fact, 30, 40 days later, like that car's gone. You're never going to see it again. I mean, that is probably the funniest question I still get. 8 years in, I was pulling red flags. I don't know how long ago, right? Trying to clear them. And back in, even when I was doing F&I back in 2008, 2009, I don't care if the address didn't match. I still wanted a bill. I wanted to make sure you are who you say you are. That comes from my banking background. People nowadays are like, oh, I know them. They bought 10 cars here. So my funny story for this is got a dealer that called me about a year ago saying, I think this might be a fraud deal. Well, I look at it. I start investigating. This little old lady had bought 8 cars from this dealership in the past 25 years. Never financed it ever. always paid cash, always came into the dealership. This time, she does it online. Same dealership sends in a credit app and says, hey, I can't come get the car. You got to deliver it to me. She lives 5 miles from the dealership. Come to find out, it wasn't her. They had this car for 6-7 months. It wasn't her. They had to contact her saying someone did this, did that. They did zero verification based at red flag, right? Like, did you even Google the address you were going to? It happened to be, it's on the East Coast where a lot of ports are.
Yep.
It was a vacant lot that someone had created an address for. That car's gone.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Come on. That's you got to say, hey, look, you bought 8-9 cars here. You all of a sudden want to finance and not come in? Interesting. So it's I think it's just everybody wants to sell as many cars as possible, which, that's the nature of the beast, right? And moving metal. But you got to take that one extra step just to say, hang on, let's protect the dealer and the consumer.
Yeah. And let me follow up with a question to that. So, I'm just going to go off some assumptions. I've asked dealers what percentage of their deals are offsite, right? They're happening off premises. But let's dial back and say, why is off premises so much riskier for fraud? I guess, I don't know if Ryan or Aaron, you want to take that. Why is that so much riskier for fraud, and why are they targeting that specific area? I have some thoughts, but y'all probably see it as much as I do.
I mean, for me, just thinking back to early days when I was selling, everybody came into the dealership. You knew everybody. You had repeat customers. Nowadays, with the internet, and I used to be the internet manager for years, you see all these people just saying, hey, I'm in Tennessee. I'm in all these other states. Can you deliver the car? This and that. You never really get a chance to meet them, see them, verify anything. You see somebody face to face, if you've played poker once or twice, you can start picking out their tells. And great salespeople are like, something's wrong here. Like, it just doesn't feel good. But salespeople get caught up in that ether too of like, I sold a car. And it's like,
they're spending that commission check already.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So, we see it all the time where it's like, oh, they just want it delivered to them. And all it takes is one person in that dealership to say, why? Why can't they come in? How are we going to get this done? And like Thane said back in the day, we'd FedEx paperwork and it's been 3 weeks. Where's our paperwork? And, it just, this whole process has just gotten, it could be streamlined a lot better with something like Mavsign, which is great. Something that I did not have at the dealership. I've driven, to another state before to go have paperwork signed because I didn't feel good about it. You get to the house and it's like, I still really don't feel good about it because this is a trailer.
Right.
But, oh, well.
Yeah.
You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Aaron, how about you?
Yeah, in that same vein, I think that, fraud has really increased since COVID. All of our dealerships are like, how can we still sell a vehicle, courtesy deliveries, etc. And that's when the fraudsters realize that there's a crack in the process. On-site delivery has been the normal process. Off-site's been a little different. So within that, fraudsters are like, hey, this is an industry that we can capitalize on. And I think that off-site deliveries, they may not have the processes to verify that the delivery driver or reporter is verifying identity when they come on site, that the ID actually matches, the address is the same. So there's a lot of areas of break-in processes that could represent liability for dealerships. And we see it a lot. Sadly, we don't hear about it until the lender contacts the dealer or the actual individual whose identity was stolen says, I never bought a car from you. And that's like, oh no, now we got to call the lender and say, you haven't caught it yet, but we got to buy this car back. So. Yeah,
and I'm guessing the person whose identity got stolen might have a challenge or a problem with all of this as well. Like, hey, how did you let this happen, right?
Right. No.
It causes them. Okay.
For sure. I mean, there's an impact of like, besides the fraudulent and the impact to the dealership for, having to buy the car back or having the car maybe missing completely. Now you have an individual whose identity was stolen and you're the one who allowed this to happen. So now you have a LifeLock situation. You may have, civil penalties coming down your way, depending on what state you're in. So there's, a snowball effect that occurs. It's not just initial, oh, buy the car back quickly. It's, oh no, what have we done with someone's identity? And for anyone who's ever had their identity stolen or lost, I have actually, then it's a cumbersome process to get it back.
Fun. All right. Well, let's have some fun here. Tell us your funniest fraud story, Aaron, or just kind of one that's memorable that would might bring a smile to our face.
A smile? I'm not sure about the smile per se. One's that's kind of like, when we think about red flags and identity, et cetera, and fraud, we always think about running credit or doing a lease deal. This is actually a fleet deal. So the scenario was, and this was a dealership back in 2019. They've been selling to this manufacturing company for, 10 years. And always it's a fleet deal. The guy calls, I need this car, same basic situation. They have a driver come pick it up, check comes in the mail later on. Well, without knowing, the dealership didn't know, but the actual owner passed away, and an employee went into the office, grabbed the information they needed, bought 3 trucks, decided to finance the trucks underneath the owner's personal information, and like, oh yeah, this is this process. He bought all the optional products, and those trucks are no longer in the States. You know what I'm saying? So it could have been stopped simply just by saying, wait a minute, first of all, you never buy optional products, just like Ryan said it as well with the elderly lady, and you never finance them. So, but once again, when it comes to seeing that whale of a deal, some people like to look past that and go from there. So it's not necessarily even, a consumer. It could also be fleet deals.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's just, like, again, I promise not to be serious, but I always said this in F&I. You either do 100% of the time, but if you do it 90, you can do it 100% of the time to be sure. If you do it 99% of the time, it's almost the same as doing it 0% of the time, because you've just given that exposure, right? And so I think that's what they're hoping, right? They've got all these lines in the water. They might be trying like all different kinds of ways, to get one past all the dealers, but they only have to be right once, and then they rinse and repeat. So, okay, I got a funny one I'll share real quick. This is somewhat anonymous. It was a Major League Baseball player in the Bay Area. So I think there's 2 teams there. So maybe some soft targets, but they allegedly bought a car from a Bay Area dealer that was on Maverick, and coaxed everybody into avoiding a ID verification, because they're like, I'm famous, and it's like celebrity and paparazzi. They like, oh no, you can't do that to me. Like, I'm a big deal, and you can't. And so I'm sure they had probably like a 10-pounder deal, right? It was probably a monster deal. The salesperson's like, oh no, this is the guy, and this and that. And so, meets him at a high rise, but of course doesn't let them go to where they are, right? Where their condo is. He makes them meet him in the lobby, right? And go through that whole process. And then did not want to allow an identity verification, even with the thumbprint and the notary. So they ended up giving them they had a fake ID that made it look like them. And then we got the affidavit of identity. And so a lot of times we're not the law enforcement, right? So we take that and give it to law enforcement, and then it got, they never got the car. Unfortunately, they weren't able to catch the person that day, but the thumbprint, they matched it against another crime that they did end up getting caught in. So it was just kind of funny because, I'm an Astros fan, and I'm sure nobody in Houston would ever let that happen if Altuve was buying a car. But anyways, he's a short guy. There's not a lot that you would be looking that small. But anyway, all right, Ryan, I'm sure you got one for me.
Oh, I was trying to think of the funniest one here. Got a call from a dealer group. They had somebody who is from Canada, living in Mexico, wanting to title it in Montana and have it shipped to it even another state.
Sure.
Wow.
It's like, have you at least FaceTimed these people? They're like, they refuse to get on FaceTime. I was like, how are you going to do this deal?
Yeah.
I went round and round, and I was like, I'm not comfortable with it, but A, it's not my money, and B, I can't tell you what to do. I can just give you advice. I think they ended up doing the deal. I don't know where that vehicle is right now.
Nah.
I don't think they do either.
No.
That's
Yeah, I think part of our value prop is like we have that full process put together, and we just create that backstop to remove all the emotion from the decision making. It's a very practical decision, right? And yeah, there are some kind of crazy stories, and we do an article, I think every week. If you're subscribed to our newsletter, we put out a fraud article, and they're all kind of, the one we did last week was about somebody who was using Chick-fil-A's as signing locations. And so, but if you're not vigilant and you don't have a real process, I think you got to take the people with the least, the people that are on the commission and getting paid really have the least incentive to go make sure this happens, just unfortunately a lot of occasions. And so how do we help just provide an extra mirror there? So I know we're coming up on time, but I did want to just kind of do some final takeaways and just talk about, we haven't really talked about the power of the Mavsign and KPA partnership and why we really look at, all these conversations we've been having over the years have been in parallel with some of the leading compliance companies, KPA, which I think is the largest in automotive. And so we just said, hey, why don't we save our breath and start having the same conversation, as opposed to saying, oh yeah, go call these guys. And then we get it and said, well, what did KPA tell you? And, we're going back and forth. So that for me was the big win. And then also, giving us the opportunity to say, hey, if you need help with other stuff, these guys can go do that for you as well. So we appreciate that opportunity a whole lot. And it's going to be great getting to work with Ryan and Aaron, kind of East Coast, West Coast, and attacking the market. Ultimately, if we can give dealers a better way to compete with the disruptors, Carvana, Amazon Autos, CarMax, all these folks that don't necessarily have the traditional dealership communities in mind, we can level that playing field, because right now the one thing separating our dealer body with them is they have a huge tech resource, and they have an army and a delivery network that they own that can go execute all those things. And they are, they have some fraud too, but they do have a pretty regimented process, because that's how their business is built. They're not built to go in dealership, right? So we feel like if we can help level that playing field, and so you don't have to worry about fraud and get the banks on board, then I think we continue to support the franchise dealer model, which is what we want to see, to win. So anyway, that's just okay, that's not a joke. That's really what I think we're all passionate about, right? So that's why we're here. So I wanted to open it up for some time to ask. We got several in the audience with questions. So I think my folks behind the screen may have a few. If anybody has any questions that we can answer in the chat, happy to answer those. And if anybody else has any funny fraud stories, I'd love to hear about them. But so we'll see.
Hey, Rudy, I actually wanted to talk about the combination of KPA and Mavsign. I think that you're right. And the reason why it works so well is that Mavsign is a proactive solution, right? And it helps. It's not finding it after the fact. And that's when Ryan on our teams is we're reviewing deal jackets, we're reviewing deals, and we're like, hey, by the way, you missed this. And it'd be so much nicer to alleviate some of our work if red flag portion of our audits were removed because they're using Mavsign. We wouldn't be saying you missed this. You're saying, hey, you caught this, great. Or how many fraudulent deals do you have this week? And none, versus we have 2. So it's really a really good process and solution that could, like I said, remove the liability around red flag and fraudulent deals.
Great. Yeah. No, it is. Most of the solutions in auto are waiting for the wrong thing to happen, as opposed to just promoting the right thing. And so if you make it easy to do the right thing over the wrong thing the first time, life gets a lot easier for car dealers. And they're great at selling, transferring that enthusiasm, showing the value of their product. Let's keep them good at that, and not distract them with all this other kind of craziness. We got your back. So
let's keep the profits in their pocket.
Yeah. There you go.
Right.
Well, I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, so we must have them, on the floor with side stitches. This was so hilarious. But we want to be there as a resource. So if you're not live right now and you see this video and you would like to share some of your stories, one of the things we learn a lot about is for dealers who aren't on Mavsign or even KPA, but if they have challenges that they're seeing, we want to hear about those as well. And maybe there's our really unique ways that fraudsters are doing things that we haven't even heard of. So we're trying to constantly get better and smarter and all that. And we share that with our partners. And we work with, where we can work with law enforcement, we 100% go back and forth with them and try to share, even if, hey, you're not a MAV customer, hey, this is one that we're seeing where they were doing some stuff, and go let your other dealers know who don't use Mavsign. Ultimately, one day maybe we have a universal cross check where if we've got enough dealers enrolled, we can know that somebody's doing something across the country and we could stop it. Thane?
Hey, Rudy. I do have something, and the story works in two areas, and this is very vital for car dealerships to know. We had a dealer that a customer drove onto the lot and wanted to lease a new vehicle based on the sign they saw in the building. It was a 39-month lease, and it was like $5 something a month. And they drove in to lease it. They took a test drive, went into the dealership with the salesperson, filled out a credit app, but the credit app was under the wife's name. And he said, the salesperson asked, why isn't it under your name? He said, oh, I'm in the process of buying a house, so I got to get approved through my mortgage and things like that. So I'd rather run it through my wife. I live in Denver. I know I'm not in California, but I'm out here for meetings in California. Let's run her credit, see if that passes and gets approved at the lender for the lease. And if so, let's FedEx the paperwork to my wife. She will FedEx it back to us, and then let me know when the paperwork's in and it's all approved, and I'll come back, pick up the car, and drive it back to Denver. We got involved in this deal. We reached out to the wife and said, hey, we're calling on behalf of this dealership. Looks like your husband's purchased his car. We want the process to go very smoothly for you and easily for you. So we'd like a time to book with you for come out, ID you, fingerprint you, and we're gonna do some paid documents for you. The sooner we get the documents back to the dealership, the sooner your husband can be back with a new car. How's that sound? She freaked out. She said, I'm not prepared to have guests. I don't want to have any guests. This wasn't part of the deal. Let me call my husband. So she called her husband up, and her husband said, no, this is not the way it's supposed to go down. So he called the salesperson up and told the salesperson, listen, you're going to lose this deal. Maverick was very rude to you. And we don't want to do business if you're not going to do it this way. So he went to the GM, said that we were the devil. Our notaries and schedulers are the devil. We don't want to have anything to do with Maverick. The GM said, hey, this is the way things are. We have to do this. So obviously something's wrong with the deal. Otherwise, we're not, if they don't do it this way, we're not going to do the deal. Make a long story short, they contacted the customer. A salesperson called the customer back. His phone was disconnected. Called the wife up. Her phone was disconnected. There's two morals to the story. One is, yes, we're going to send out a notary and a scheduler making an appointment to meet the customer live, right? That's one. That was a protection in itself. But if you roll back that process, if they had an in-store Verify ID service, right, where they can scan a driver's license and get a biometric face ID and a DMV scan in 44 states, right? Then this probably would not have even gotten to the test drive, if that makes sense. So we would have caught that fraudulent deal before that, and then the ID would have not have passed. Not only that, but we, and I'm going to kind of, brag about our service, but our live VID team, we have technical support all the time. So if ID is not going through, you have live people that are going to answer the phone and help you walk you through that. So that's something extra that we have. But back to the story, if we had that in place in the store, that would never have gone to the test drive part. And I think this happens on a daily basis with dealers. Hey, I'd like to take a test drive on this Mercedes. Hey, a quick driver license scan, ding, ding. Instead of a photocopy, because remember, we used to go to the Xerox machine and take a photocopy of the driver license before we take a test drive. Now you're just taking a photo of the driver license front and back, tells you pass or fail, and you take a test drive. Same process, it's just different machines. And I think if we had that in the stores, I think the dealers would greatly benefit from that as well. That's what I'm trying to say. So I don't know, Aaron, Ryan, if you guys want to chime in.
We got a few questions in. We got a few questions in. I was going to follow up to your in-store thing. I have some dealers that would disagree. They have these things called checklists. Have y'all seen one of these? I actually wrote one up. There's usually like on average 3 checklists a deal. And so, Thane, I don't think you need to check driver's license because I've got a checkbox right here. You see that? And so I get my deal. I take the driver's license out. I put it on the copier. I press a button. I watch a flashy light. I grab the driver's license. I give it back to the customer. I put the copy in the deal jacket. And then I take my marker and I do that. Done.
Yep.
Verified. Anyways, sorry. All right, so had a question from Craig and Val. Just they're kind of the same thing. Do you foresee ability to offer reimbursement if someone runs the system and still a fraud gets through? I think Val asked about a guarantee. So a couple pieces. We are announcing a limited fraud guarantee on our service. So we have again, this was not intended, but I guess due to all the scars we've kind of acquired over the years, we have figured out, hey, if you do these things on a deal, the fraud will be zero guaranteed. So we have come up with that service, and we're excited to roll that out to the KPA folks. And I think we're meeting with their teams even today as we speak. So there is that opportunity, and I do think going further, dealers are looking for a more holistic reimbursement. Maybe there is a path with some of the administrators out there to do maybe more like a full, kind of like a gap for fraud kind of thing. But do we have a limited fraud guarantee, almost kind of similar to what you might see to a Carfax type thing. So we stand behind our product. We know it works, and we have great partners to help us represent that. So I had a couple other questions. Any thoughts on combating the growing trend of credit bust outs and credit washing? So there's a lot of secret sauce we do behind the scenes that probably is not appropriate to share live, but we have, we do know that, and it's kind of where all these funny stories come up when you just rely exclusively on technology, and people now love to say, well, I've got AI. Oh, great. That's probably more terrifying. But, when you have that team behind it that has the practical knowledge and knows where, and sees all the different things they're trying, we are looking for, we do catch bust outs and in some capacity, because I'll give you a couple of secrets. You obviously go see how long has that cell phone been there? How long has that email been active? Is the work address real? And then, it doesn't remove this whole offsite process doesn't remove the need to have red flags and out of wallet questions, which should catch those kinds of things, right? I would say credit washing is concerning. The fact that people can do that, I agree, it should be harder. I would say it is definitely more likely to happen if you're not vigilant upstream. If you're doing these kinds of things upstream in the process, you're going to be more likely. We're proud to say we haven't had one of those come through our system. And most likely they see enough of what we're doing, the fraudsters. They're like, yeah, I'm just not going to risk it with these guys. We're going to go probably somewhere else, is what we see. Okay, so going down the questions, I saw a question from Mark May. What's the first step for a dealer reaching out and having a consultation with you? That's super easy. I'll have my folks put the form in the chat. So if anybody wants to go have a consultation, just let us know, and we're happy to go answer questions. Whether you're a Mavsign dealer or not, you just want to share or get information, we can connect you there. Let's see. So I see Amy, who in the dealership should be responsible for streamlining the offsite delivery process? Well, I am going to say, I think in the past, we've always just said that's the F&I person's problem. I'm like, great. One more thing they got to go figure out. I mean, they're juggling more things in the dealership than anybody, and you're just going to put one more thing on their plate. And, historically, offsite deals have kind of sucked from an F&I perspective. You feel like you're not going to sell product. It's brain damage. You don't get a good turn. It hurts your PVRs, all that stuff. So, the problem is you don't even know who's doing offsite deals because they go make it a house deal, right? So Rudy, I think, yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to ask Ryan and Aaron that question. Like, how do they? What do they tell dealerships on this? If that's okay.
And that's where I was going with KPA, because y'all are talking probably to the people that do need to be driving that process.
Yeah, I think I speak for Aaron. We always suggest that there is a compliance officer in each location who is embedded with us, talks with us, and can get can't have 20 people in a dealership calling me and Aaron all the time. One person should be the head point of all of that and say, this is our process. This is how we do it. And it needs to go flow down. And if there's questions, we're going to call KPA. We're going to say, hey, we don't feel right about this deal, or we'll be like, hey, get Mavsign involved for all of these things. But there should be one person in every dealership who is the compliance person. Everything, like we say safety is everyone's job, right? So is compliance. It's everybody in the dealership. They need to have an understanding of it, but there should be one person who can spearhead all of this. And we call them a compliance officer, or, you know, whatever you want to call it in a dealership, but somebody needs to head that whole thing off.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would
I
add,
agree
I
with that
think
for
it's
sure.
important to have that no card separate from the normal sales chain of command, right? Like it's almost like that compliance person has a direct line to the dealer, right? Because they have that no card, and that's why they're there. So, Aaron, sorry to interrupt.
No, I agree with that. Like, I mean, this individual shouldn't have any type of like intrinsic benefit from profit from that deal. They should solely think of it as a process driven. And really, you know, Amy's question is kind of hard because each company is built and structured differently. They may have 50 finance managers, they may have 5 GSMs, or they may have one person kind of doing everything. So, going back to what Ryan said, yeah, I would say it's a hard thing to answer, but there needs to be someone, and it needs to be someone outside of the sales process that isn't going to be pulled in 10 directions. And it shouldn't be someone in finance, in my mind, as a director or even as finance, because they're just getting files, you know, slammed on their desk and saying, hey, we have 5 people waiting in the sales floor waiting for you. So they're not going to even bother with making sure the processes are going in the correct manner.
Gotcha. All right, we've got another one. I think this is a great one for KPA to answer. So I've seen a good amount of fraud with credit applications. What would be the best process for the dealer?
Well, it depends on how the credit application is being submitted. If it's going online, when the customer comes in person, I would have them complete another credit application and make sure that everything matches. From there, I would verify that the governor ID matches in completely. I see a lot of situations where people are doing, using their middle name as their first name, using their last name and hyphenating it with maybe a maiden name, and that in line creates compliance issues on verifying red flags, OFAC, the individual's name on a contract. So it all comes back to verifying the information on a credit application and just slowing the process down and having a 2-step process of having a paper and electronic, and then verifying those together and making sure they match, including income and mortgage and such. That would be a nice step. So really, it's slowing the process down a little bit and then verifying that what the customer provides you is accurate, and it is double checked on 2 forms of credit applications.
Great. Ryan, anything to add?
I didn't catch that. You asking me?
Yeah, anything to add?
No, I mean,
talking to me? Are you talking to me?
Look, I know a lot of people probably rolled their eyes when Aaron said handwritten credit app, but I mean, think about, and we've caught this in certain situations where somebody fills it out online and you hand that back to them. I have a dealership group who does this. They still, in 2025, make them handwrite it. And if it doesn't match, how did it not match? You just filled this out 24, 48 hours ago. Now you make more money. Your address is different. There's something going on there. I mean, there is look, we got a lot of technology.
Keeps changing.
Yeah. A lot of technology out there, but there is also a way to step back into the early 2000s and go, wait a second. So in conjunction, they work pretty well together.
Gotcha. Man, what happened to the good old days of just the document production, outfits that would just miraculously paychecks would appear? Like, oh, how'd that happen? I miss that. I'm kidding.
Matching signatures. I have to self-promote myself, but on our in-store Verify ID or a biometric face ID that we send out to customers, the customer has to authorize it. So they actually sign on their phone their signatures. So if you do get a contract, you can match that with the contract, see if it's similar. That's kind of a nice thing to have. So that's just one to point out.
Very true. Cool. Well,
we've got a great tech stack. So.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And I know KPA has a bunch of great technology partners. We're just proud to be part of that now. So it looks like we're past time. We've had some great questions. Carol just put the contact form in the chat. Obviously, you can go to mavsign.com or kpa.io if I'm not mistaken, and get more information about what we're doing. And we're pretty regular with our fraud articles once a week. So if you're following us on LinkedIn, you'll see kind of the latest funny. I think the one we did this week was about somebody who swore they were in witness protection. That was actually a pretty good story. We should probably share. We'll also just follow get our newsletter and get on KPA's newsletter. I do see one more from Bianca. As a compliance manager, how do you navigate risk appetite when it comes to red flags, knowing it's ultimately up to the dealer group? Whew, that might be a whole separate podcast question. Wow.
Fraudcast 2.
Throwing the big guns out, man. Good stuff. Okay, well, who wants to take that one?
Aaron, you have
Eric?
a headset.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if I'm understanding the question correctly, how do you? Look, there's a multitude of process that you need to adhere to. You obviously have, let's say, the red flags come up. You have LOI questions. You have which questions are going to come up with that issue. Phone number doesn't match. Okay, that could be a low severity. It could be a high severity. But I mean, you need to do due diligence, and a company dealer group needs to ultimately understand where's my level of risk. Right? How long have we potentially been working with this individual? Have they lived on their credit application at this location for a long portion of time, but yet they have no, the credit report doesn't validate that they've had any type of information being pinged from that location. So we like to say, as we're hyper conservative as a compliance company, we're saying, hey, little to no risk is the best approach, because even within that, as Rudy said earlier, 100% and then 99%, there's still that 1% risk. But if I understood that question correctly, then yes, I would say it's up to the dealership, but it's also, do your best to verify and validate. So don't rely on the lenders to require STIPs, if I'm saying that as well, because a lot of dealerships we hear are saying, oh, the lender approved it. It's like, great, until they don't approve it and you buy it back in 6 months from now. So you need to be the stopgap here, and you need to verify that your process is more stringent than the lenders. And you do, as Ryan did in the past, ask for POR, POI, and verify, ask for a Costco card. Do whatever you can to validate they are who they are. And that protects you and the customer and potentially someone they're trying to do identity fraud right now in front of you, and you're protecting a future customer as well.
Yeah, no, good point. And the last thing I would add, and we enforce what's called group instructions. So the dealers that do want to make sure that there's rules and they want to give us the no card, they give us group instructions. So I would just tell Bianca, like, write down what the risk, with your dealer, in a room when you don't have a deal in front of you that you want to go sell, write it down, right? This is what is okay, and this is what's not okay. And then, you've got that direct line and you've got that no card to say, nope, we're not going to sell that car, period, end of story.
Well, first step should be VID anyway.
Subjective, right? So.
But for the first step should be VID when you're walking into a store. That's the very first step of the process.
Yeah, no doubt.
So verify ID as soon as you walk in the dealership.
Yes. So that should, well, ID verification, again, hopefully everybody knows this was a joke. So that should be part of every process.
Was it?
I do for a small fee. I do for a small fee still train on this. I can also do advanced equity, lots of different fun old tricks. So, okay, we are at time. I would encourage everybody. Our next broadcast is August 1st. We have some special guests, TBD. We're going to keep it a secret for a bit. So we're going to have some more fun stories, some new different dynamics in the industry that we'll be talking about August 1st. So if you enjoyed this broadcast, share it with your friends. Please follow up for more information. And we are going to come back and see you on August 1st, probably same time on a Friday Fraudcast, Freaky Friday, whatever you want to call it. I think we'll stick with this name, though. This is kind of fun. So appreciate everybody attending. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Aaron. And Thane, as always, you're a legend. So I'll close with to tell everybody, be a maverick and have a great weekend. And I'll see y'all in a few weeks.
Thank you, Rudy.
Thank you. Goodbye.